to The Writer's Dream. This is a show where authors are able to talk about their books, how they wrote them, how they published them, and how they market them. Please visit us on YouTube or Facebook, where you can leave comments and questions, and we will endeavor to answer them. Today's guest is LeLonni Campbell, and she is a practicing astrologer, and she is the author of Companion Animals Through the Eyes of an Astrologer. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
It's wonderful to have an astrologer here. Can you explain to us what astrology is?
Well, astrology, it's a very complicated subject, but what I have done to try to explain it to people, because I teach astrology a lot, is astrology is energy. And to me, it's pure and simply energy. When you take your first breath as a baby, you take in the breath of that moment of time. You then have the ability to use that energy in ways you choose. The analogy that I often use is electric. When we plug a light in with electric, we love electric, it's wonderful, takes away the dark. But if I take my two fingers and I put them in that same socket, I don't have a really good result. You know, if I'm lucky, I just end up with curly hair. So you ask the question, did the electric do anything different? No, it's how I used it. So what astrology is energy that is given to us to use. We make choices on how we're going to. Another example that I often use is Charlie Manson and Mahatma Gandhi. We would think of them as complete polar opposites, and in some ways they are. But in some ways they have tremendous similarities. They have similar energy within their astrological charts. And when you look at it, both of them were charismatic leaders. Both of them actually changed a nation and changed how the nation looked at itself. We perceive one as evil, we perceive one as saintly. And that is that fine line of we couldn't have a saint if we didn't have the evil. We couldn't have black if we didn't have white. So astrology is that energy. The astrologer is the person who looks at the energy and makes educated guesses on how it's being used. No astrologer can ever say to you, you are or you will, because we have free will and we have choice on how we use the energy we are given. But astrology is that ability to look at a person. What are they projecting? What are they generating? What are their talents? What are their gifts? What are their liabilities?
And this is based on because I am a person of science, and I know astronomy is the study of the heavens and the planets. And so astrology is based on the signs of the zodiac?
What it is I consider it, there's a popular term called the three-legged stool. Astrology is a four-legged stool. The signs of the zodiac are purely energy. They're archetypes. If we only worked by the 12 signs of the zodiac, we'd only have 12 personalities in the entire world, because that would be it. Everybody has every single sign of the zodiac in their chart. So the signs are energy. The planets carry the energy. So for example, the energy of Aries can be an aggressive energy. So the planet Mars, which is a planet of anger, if it is in the sign of Aries, it can carry an aggressive type of energy. But again, we have free will on how to use it. It also can be someone who does a lot of good. Then you have what we call the houses, which is based on the time you were born. The houses is where the energy is dispersed. The houses are the mundane areas of our life, like our finances, our relationships, our children. And then the last, which is a very important factor, is the mathematical difference, energy between the planets, whether it's a 90-degree angle, excuse me, or a 120-degree angle. Does the energy flow easily? I tend to look at the planets almost like people, to be honest with you, like Venus. I picture her as a really cute little girl with little blonde curls. And then I picture Saturn as the strict teacher. So if those two planets are together in a horoscope holding hands, what happens? We have this little girl who wants to have fun, wants to be loved, and wants to play, holding hands with the strict teacher who says that everything you do is incorrect. How does that react on a person? They become a little more insecure. They become a little less able to fully enjoy life. So this is how an astrology uses it. Then you bring it to a point where we do something we call progressing a chart, which is bringing it into the here and now, and we compare it with the planets in the sky.
So that's why when you pick up the paper or you get a reading from an astrologer, they're taking what's going on in the present and basing it on where all of your planets and whatnot.
Right, exactly. And I also, since you've studied science, I think you more than the average person would appreciate this, is one of I tend to be a person who I like to study a lot of different things. I've got a a lot of hobbies like history and religion and that kind of thing, but I also love to study astronomy. It's been a love since I've been a very young child. And there is a very strong synergy with the way the planets act and behave in our solar system with how they act in our horoscope. My favorite and easiest example to give for people to understand is the planet Jupiter. The way our solar system is set up, we have the rocky planets, which are the inner planets, which is Mercury through Mars. Then we have the asteroid belt, and then we have Jupiter, which is our first gas giant and the biggest planet of the zodiac. Now, these rocky planets in the early parts of the making of our solar system were bombarded by asteroids and meteors. It was a very violent birth to
By rocky, you mean solid.
By solid, right, the solid planet. They call them rocky because they were made from asteroids, and asteroids are rocks. So, right, they're solid planets. So why doesn't this happen in today's world? Well, it may happen again one day, but it's certainly not happened like it was millions of years ago during the formation of the solar system. Well, what has happened is the planet Jupiter is so large, and it has such a strong gravitational field, and it has such a strong energetic field around it, that when space debris comes in, most of it is grabbed by Jupiter and thrown back out to space. So Jupiter actually protects the inner solar system, allowing us on Earth to survive. Now, in astrology, when we look at Jupiter, what do we say about Jupiter? I call Jupiter a guardian angel. Where Jupiter is in your chart is where you're protected. Jupiter sends what we call benefic rays to you. So let's say Jupiter is in your second house of finances. Doesn't mean you're going to be rich, but it means you're protected. You have a guardian angel. So you're one of those people that at the 11th hour, when you think everything is lost, maybe you win the lottery, something happens.
So before I visit my financial advisor, I should find out where Jupiter is in my chart.
I agree. And look at your second house.
And so this is pretty much, I think a lot of people think that a horoscope or an astrological reading is like seeing into the future, but it really isn't.
It is, and there's a little bit of that to it, but I know I have been studying, I'm not going to admit how many years I studied astrology, because then I'll start to admit how old I actually am. But I have spent a lot of my career telling people I am not a fortune teller. If you want to know what happens tomorrow, it depends upon what you do today. What I can tell you is what part of your chart has obstacles, what part of your chart may have positive energy going on in it. I can look at your chart and say, maybe relationships are acting up right now, and then we discuss the wherefore of why that is happening. I cannot say to you, you will get a divorce, that's your choice. I cannot say to you, you're going to lose a job, that's your choice. But I can look at your chart and say, wow, it looks to me like this could be an area where there's some issues going on, maybe even some restructuring and things going on in the background. I think it's getting to you on an emotional level, but you need to make the choice. So this is something I'm very passionate about. Any astrologer, tarot card reader, anybody else that insists that this is going to happen and it doesn't sit right in your gut,
don't worry about
I dismiss it.
Right. Okay.
I don't think we have the right to say, I don't think we have the right to tell you what is going to happen, because then you can do two things with that. One is I can put a negative thought in your head. Say if I said to you today, oh, wow, your marriage looks like it's in trouble. And I've seen astrologers do this. Is there any chance your husband's cheating? Your husband might be the nicest guy in the world who never even thought of something like this, but what have I done?
I've sown the seeds of doubt.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm very cautious on how I do that.
Okay. I noticed that you do workshops as well.
Yes, I do.
One of them is celestial events.
What I do is once a month on Sunday mornings, there's a group that we meet, and everybody is invited to it. There's no charge for it. I just ask a donation to pay the room rent. And I go over the new and the full moons of the month. New moons are a time to plant a seed in your life. Full moons are times to let go of what doesn't serve you anymore. And I'll look at everybody's chart and I'll say, okay, maybe this is happening in your, let me think for a minute, maybe it's happening in your 9th house. If you have a full moon in your 9th house, maybe it's time to let go of outworn ideologies that don't work for you anymore. If there's a new moon in your 9th house, maybe it's a time to open your mind to something new, and it's a time to maybe start going to school or learning something. And then I just go over what the major events going on, and I don't have to say that the world has been in quite a flux the last couple of years. So with all the energy that's going on astrologically, I will talk about what is happening and how it affects personal charts.
No, that's very interesting
Yeah.
because you, as a person, you always find that there are times in your life when you're really open to things, and other times when you're not.
just not.
So it would be nice to have some guidance in that area. And I think also if someone is telling you that you're open to something, you'll be more open to
I
it.
agree with you. And I think, to me, one of the biggest strengths of understanding astrology is the timing involved with it.
Okay.
Is it a good time to start something? And sometimes I would say, I've had people say, oh, you can't do that, such and such is happening. I don't believe that. I think you can do anything whenever you want. Just be prepared that it may be a little more difficult or a little easier. And if you want to wait till an easier time, that's a good thing too.
Yeah. What is the 7-Ray workshop?
But that's a metaphysical workshop. And my particular philosophical beliefs revolve around some ancient wisdoms that have been known since time immemorial. Many of our modern religions use this information, but they've actually forgotten where they got it from. And the 7 rays are the fundamental energies of this part of the universe, of our solar system in general. So it's talking about that on a very metaphysical level. We can use it on both a personal and a general level, and it's a way to find harmony within part of us being a part of humanity and a part of mankind.
I see. Many of the various kinds of workshops and I won't call them new beliefs because they're really old beliefs, depend upon energy and your use of energy. And from a scientific point of view, this is all well and good because one of the first laws of science is the law of conservation of matter and energy. You can't create it, you can't destroy it, you can just...
It changes.
You can just move it around.
Exactly.
That's all.
And that actually is a lot of what the basis of this is. And as I said, many of our current religious, philosophical beliefs, even some of our scientific beliefs. I love watching new finds in quantum physics. And I actually laugh when I read them because I feel like they're starting to catch up with us.
Yeah.
And there's, to me, one of the most intriguing, it's not that new, but one of the intriguing newer ideas they have is the multi-universes. Because I have always believed, and I think most people in metaphysics... And
string theory, which says that there are many more dimensions than we know
and we
about.
are layered in time-space dimensions.
Yeah.
So they are catching up with a lot of these. The ancients knew these things. They knew them.
Yeah, and I've had two experiences that I think, now watch, I'll tell you one and I'll forget the other one, that have to do with energy. We were reading, I have a book club, we were reading a book and the concept of grace came up. Grace is a religious concept.
Right.
In the Catholic Church, what it is it, and I'm going to say it's grace, but the non-Catholics in the group asked me, what is grace? And I said, I had to think about it, and I said, it's the white light, it's the force. I'm trying to put it in. And I said, actually, it's the thing that exists in the universe that lets you be better than yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's a form of energy.
And it's a form of purity.
Yes.
It's a form of purity. Yeah. And I agree with you, and I love doing this workshop for that reason. Now, astrology can play into it. I'm actually not using it at this point because there are many people there that don't understand basic astrology, which is, on a scientific level, it's actually a very overwhelming subject. Learning...
Well, it's very intricate. From what you explain, I can see where, it's not just the signs of the zodiac and the position of the planet. It's a lot of interaction.
There's a lot. You've got all these different possibilities. It's like rolling a dice. You can have so many, I forget what the combinations are, but you take the 12 houses, the sun and the moon, the planets, the aspects, and you just roll them all together. You have so many different combinations that you can come up with. And then you've got something called esoteric astrology, which is actually one of my specialties, and that is also working with the rays. And that's an astrology that's working with what the personality wants versus what the soul wants. It's the purpose we came here for. And the inner conflicts and struggle we often have.
The little angel and the little devil.
Our soul is often telling us to go in one direction, and our personalities go, no, I know better, I want to go in this direction. And we're not always aware of that. And through studying esoteric astrology, which gets very confusing because we kind of throw all the rules out from regular astrology. But if you don't know regular astrology, it gets even more confusing. So I keep that out of this, and I use that for private readings. I actually, when I do private readings, I use several different modalities in my astrology. Even the chakra system, you can read that through an astrological chart. So I will use all of them at one time. But the workshop, I just want people to understand the energies of what we're dealing with. If any of them choose to go further and want to learn the astrology of it, obviously I would go in that direction. But I think they're already so enthralled in how much information they're getting they hadn't had, that in my personal opinion, adding more to it could be overwhelming.
I did have a reading by an astrologer once, and I was overwhelmed. I was like, I really wanted to know, all I really wanted to know was the possibility in the near future of getting along with a certain person that I had to get along with.
Right.
And I was so overwhelmed by the knowledge. And he used computer programs, and he gave me a CD of the of the reading and whatnot. But I found it I found it not anything that I didn't really know about myself, but I found all of the information overwhelming. And I could see where if you're going to do this, you really have to do it in stages, and you have to continue to do it if you want to make use of it.
Exactly. And I often recommend to people when they do get readings that they should lower their expectations, because we can't go over their whole life and every issue they have in one reading. Right. So my goal is to look at what I feel is the driving forces within their personal chart and what is being affected at that point in time. Because going past that, I mean, again, if you've done, if you study science, you know this too. People cannot comprehend a whole lot after an hour. No. So any more than an hour reading.
Usually it's 15 minutes.
Yeah. When it's about them, they go a little bit. They go a little bit further.
Yeah, they hang in there.
And when you speak of relationships, that's something I don't think I had down. I'm having a relationship workshop in honor of, I was going to say Halloween. That was a Freudian slip. In honor of Valentine's Day next month. I think
it is a Freudian,
it was a Freudian slip. I think it was on the 9th. And what I'm going to be doing is talking about what a relationship really is, why they work and why they don't work from an astrological viewpoint.
That's fascinating. Yeah. That's absolutely fascinating.
Well,
Well, let's talk about your book.
Okay, we can do that. Absolutely.
And your book is Companion Animals Through the Eyes of an Astrologer. And I want to read a quote from something that you wrote. It says, "Animals are so pure and true to their nature that in some ways they can represent the energy of the zodiac in a way nothing else can." Yep. So tell us about
And I do agree with that. Well, I consider myself a very fortunate person in life. I have always had a certain amount of drive and passion. Animals and astrology, I was like born into both of them. I cannot remember a time in my life when I wasn't involved with them. I used to drive my mother crazy with both of them. But most of my adult life, I have had numerous animals. I mean, I've had everything from chickens and pigeons to horses and ponies and cats and dogs. And when I was in my early 30s, I started working at an animal shelter, of which I became the director of, and it turned into approximately a 30-year career. And animals are a passion of mine. I always did my astrology, but quite honestly, I couldn't be a full-time astrologer and a full-time director of an animal shelter because it just didn't work. So the astrology, I never left it, but it was kind of on the back burner. And I used it enough where even in the shelter, when we got birthdays of puppies, I would do charts on them so I could get an idea of what because most people don't have the birthdays, but I always asked birthdays of animals because to me it was a little bit of an added insight into that animal's personality. And I would watch the way people interacted with animals, and to me there's a frustration in the way our society treats animals. Yeah. They're very disposable, they're very giveaway, we're very anthropomorphic with them, and we think they have needs that we have, but they really don't have. People with little dogs tend to forget that they're actually dogs, and they're stunned when they start biting. Most little dogs were bred to be, little rat terrier hunter type of dogs. Right. And like children, they need boundaries, they need discipline, and people never took the time. And for me, the point, and I talk about this in the book, was we had this litter of puppies come in, and an older couple came in, and they wanted to adopt a puppy. And we adopted it too, and they're very nice people. Next morning, before the shelter was even open, we see their car pull up, and the woman comes in, and she's got the puppy, and she wants to return it. And I asked why. She said, because it cried all night. And I said, well, it's a baby. And she said, no, it's a puppy. I said, but a puppy is a baby. I said, this is his first night away from its litter mates. It was just taken away from its mother a couple of days ago. This is the first night alone. She said, well, I can't tolerate a puppy crying all night. And I said, well, if you have a baby, they often keep you up crying all night, but they're certainly worth the effort you put into it. And she got very angry at me and told me I didn't understand. So we took the puppy back, obviously. And it was, even though I had worked in the field for a lot of years, and I won't even tell you the stories that I've seen because some of them are awful and horrific and they always bothered me, this one got to me. This one just got to me because I'm saying to myself, why could someone not understand the little puppy crying for a first night is not a perfectly normal thing for a puppy to do?
Because they don't think of the animal as a living thing.
Well,
with feelings.
that's exactly it. And when we go back to when I was talking before about my metaphysical philosophies, I very much believe that we are here to help the animals evolve to a higher state, not to be their rulers.
Their masters.
Exactly. And we are not more intelligent than animals. We are just different from animals. You know, I would challenge someone to go out and spend a couple of nights in the woods in weather like this, yet an animal can do that. It's not because they're smarter than us, it's because that's what they're equipped to do. And I've always liked to write. And quite honestly, some of my liking to write has been laziness. I just don't want to sit myself down and spend that much time. Plus, I'm a busy person.
Right.
But that night when I went home, I just started writing. It just started coming out of me. I'm sorry.
That's okay. There's water.
Yeah, I was just, I'll take a glass of water.
Actually, we have a shot, I believe, of your book cover. It's an ebook, so there it is. They're queuing it up now, so
and that's
people will see the cover.
That's a few of my animals. You have no idea how many animals I've had in my lifetime. I know at one point several years ago when I was living in West Hampton, I had a huge house, and I had like 6 dogs, 15 cats. I went into bird rescue for a while, and I had about 30 birds. All of them were very old, sick. They weren't in good shape, so I knew I wouldn't have them for a long-term type of thing. And I learned so much from my animals. And one of the things that I have a passion for deaf Australian shepherds. Absolutely love them. They're like the smartest dogs in the world. But they're deaf because of inappropriate breeding. So as I said, all this started to come out of me. And I'm like, you know, people are not respecting animals for what they are. And animals are pure. That's the one thing, you know, when you talk about grace before, animals have grace. Even an animal that's aggressive. I'm not condoning that we should have aggressive dogs running the neighborhood because I don't. But why is that dog aggressive? Most times, not because the dog got up one morning and said, I want to be a nasty dog. It's poor breeding. It's puppy mills. It's inappropriate behavior when they're young. It's inappropriate.
It's also abuse.
Exactly. Well, to me, not training them is abuse.
Yeah. It's like not giving children discipline is abuse as well.
And they are very similar to children. And that can offend some people. Some people get very upset when you say that. But a dog, especially a very intelligent dog, will have the mentality of about a 4 or a 5-year-old child. You know, I have a deaf Australian Shepherd right now, and when I take her...
Deaf?
Yeah, she's deaf. I got her deaf on purpose because I love the deaf. There's a way they breed them and they turn out white, and because of that, that matter on the book cover, I think there's a couple of them on the book cover. You'll see the white dogs, they're the Aussies. And I've trained her very well because I don't want her going up to strangers because she's a dog. You know, dogs can bite. So what I do is every time we pass a person, if she ignores them, she gets a treat. Well, she's smart enough to know if there's 2 people, she should get 2 treats. So if I only give her 1, she nudges me until I get the second. So when people say that animals don't have that, it's because they don't spend the time or the energy with the animal.
They're not listening.
Exactly, and they're not listening to the animal. And animals, they have taught me a tremendous amount about body language, including human body language. You know, one of the examples, and we used to tell this, one of the main reasons children get bit is because they go running up to a dog and they're laughing, and they're giggling, and they hang on to them. When a child is laughing and giggling to a dog, the body language is you're showing your teeth at me, and how dare someone beneath me that's a toddler show their teeth.
Invade my space.
Exactly. So, as I said, this book just started coming out of me, and it was a matter of, you know, people adopt an animal, they're very active people, but they get a basset hound. Well, that dog doesn't want to go for a walk with them. Or you get people who all they do is sit and watch TV at night, but they want to get a Dalmatian. And then you add the astrology sign to that. And as I said, each sign of the zodiac has an archetypal energy. Most people don't have their animals' full birth date, and I did give some hints, but you can get some hints. Most animals are born in the spring and the fall. That's an average, and sometimes if you count back, you can get a little bit of an idea. But there are certain things they need. You know, you get signs like Scorpio. Aries, Capricorn. These are very assertive signs in the zodiac, and these are signs, the Capricorn and the Scorpio in particular, are little wary signs. You know, they're not trusting immediately. So you have young children, and you go out and you buy yourself a Rottweiler. Don't get an Aries or a Capricorn Rottweiler, because you take a dog that's already a guard dog and you're buying it with a sign that's aggressive.
So basically, if I read your book, if I want to buy a dog,
Right.
I'll read your book, and you'll pretty much, do you do it by breed or?
I do a combination. I do it more by sign, but I bring up some of the breeds that work
see.
or don't work with that particular sign.
Now, this book is available on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon, yes.
And are you planning to do a sequel to it? More
I
information?
have thought about it, but I'll go back again to, I'm not always as disciplined as I could be with really sitting down and writing it. It's something I actually would like to do, because I think it's to me, it's an important topic. I think it's important on both the animal and the astrological
Well, you're
level.
passionate about it, so I
Yeah.
was going to ask you what was the best part about writing about this, but you're passionate about it. What was the biggest challenge of writing this book?
My lack of self-discipline.
Aw.
That was my biggest, other than it actually just came out of me. And I know you write also, so you know exactly what that feeling is.
Yeah, well, you have times when you can't write a thing, and then you have other times
Right.
when you just wish everybody would go away so you could sit and write.
Exactly.
Write.
And I tend to do that more with short articles. I don't think I'm actually like a novel writer type of person. I love writing short articles. I've had quite a few astrological articles published in, national astrology magazines. But this is the first attempt I made at anything past that.
Do you do a regular column, astrology column, for any paper or magazine?
I do a blog for Patch.com.
Oh, okay.
I do that. And what I do with that is, because I have a weekly newsletter. And for that
That's
matter,
right, because I get your newsletter.
right. Anybody who signs up on my email address, they'll get it. And I always post the weekly newsletter for Patch.com, and then some astrological.
Well, we're going to be looking for your columns and your workshops.
Okay.
And it was great to have you on.
I'm so glad to.
Absolutely
Thank you. It was wonderful.
fascinating topic.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. So